Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Demetra Lit All Day. This is Trial Watch with Demetra. The state of Georgia versus LEILANI Simon. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to stick around. See if you like it and hit the subscribe button. Of course, hit the like button. And I want to encourage you to participate. Become a part of the Lit Lane Jury Box. Lit Lane is what we call the channel over here. One moment. All right. So I'm glad to have you guys join me. And sorry for my tardiness, but we are in fact and indeed ready to go and ready to start the official trial watch of the state of Georgia versus LEILANI Simon. There is a playlist on this channel called Trial Watch with Demetra, and all of this content you will be able to find there. So far, is uploads of the timeline of events, and also an upload of a closer look where we look at some of the legal documents that was filed in this case. Tonight we're going to get started with opening statements. Opening statements in this case it's really good. Okay, the state really goes into depth explaining exactly what this case is. But just a real quick review from myself. In the state of Georgia versus LEILANI Simon, the people you see on the picture, on the right is the mother, 24 years old, LEILANI Simon of Georgia. LEILANI Simon is the mother of 3 children. A 3-year-old son. Well, he was 3 at the time. Zane. Her second son. Hey, Kurt Vixen, good evening. Her second son, the victim in this case, was 20-month-old Quentin Simon. That's his picture there in the middle looking adorable. And she's also the mother of a baby girl. And I am so sorry that I came on late, you guys. I came on late tonight because of the fact that I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. And I don't know for certain or not what exactly procedures I'm getting done tomorrow at the dentist. So it may be a possibility I ain't gonna be able to run my mouth. So I want to stick on schedule, and I wanted to get this done. But hello Living, hello Winter, thank y'all for coming and supporting. I just really wanted to get this done in case I can't come on live tomorrow. If I can come on live tomorrow, if I don't get this distraction done tomorrow, and it's just a consultation, then I'll be on tomorrow night with the next part. But I know this is late. But we're going to get into it, and it'll be here for you guys to come back and review. Thank y'all for supporting tonight. So, on October 5th, 2022, LEILANI Simon called the police statement, reported her middle child, her 20-month-old infant son, Quentin, missing. Of course, the police got to investigating. It was an all-out search for this baby, of course. Only to find out very quickly that the baby was going to be assumed deceased. The investigators got word and got wind of a tip that they need to probably be looking at a local landfill. Hello, Nitra, for this baby. A month later, over 400 searchers, over 1,200 pounds of garbage they went through at that landfill. A month and a couple of days go by, and they recover Quentin's body. Our defendant in this case is LEILANI Simon. She is accused of murdering her son, hiding his body. A total of 19 counts she's standing trial for. This trial started on last Monday, October 14th. And this live tonight is the official beginning and start of Trial Watch with Demetra, the state of Georgia versus LEILANI and Simon. So let's get into these opening statements. I think you guys are going to be really interested. The opening statements from the state is one for the books. Okay, so you're going to get all the information, all the background that you need in these opening statements by the state of Georgia. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. Thanks again for joining me and supporting this content. Let's get it going. Boom. Okay. Oh Lord. y'all wouldn't even imagine why I tried to come on live at least an hour ago now when I posted that on my wall that I'll be going live. I made the mistake that I'll never make again. Hey, Lady Steph, I'll never make the mistake again of trying to do something new on this software right when I go live. I will never do that again in life. What took me 45 minutes to an hour to get on here is because I was trying to change this part to match this new trying to get my alerts to match my background. I did not know that was going to send me into the abyss of the unknown. Hey, Jason Finch. Okay, so I think I have it up here now. Let me see. I do. So let's get started. All right. Without further ado. Boom. And y'all should be able to hear this without a problem. And I also tried to be cognizant of recording it louder. So we shall see. Fair use. That's LEILANI Simon, the defendant in this case, accused of unaliving her 20-month-old son, Quentin. Another Quentin, you guys. I didn't notice that our last case that's on hold right now until November 5th, and the victim in this case, it took me a moment until I realized two Quentins.
Old, a little bit over that, 20 months.
Hey, Shannon.
Like all children, he was blameless. He was innocent.
Can y'all hear?
He was beautiful. And like all children, he was totally defenseless. Totally and completely dependent on the adults in his life to take care of him and to look out for his safety. And the evidence in this case will show that the defendant violated that trust, that most basic, sacred trust of a parent, in the most horrible way. In the middle of the night, she killed him, her own son, got in her car with his body.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Drove to a dumpster and threw him away like a piece of trash. She would go home, go to sleep like everything was normal, and wake up the next morning and report it to the police as an abduction. I woke up, my front door was open, and my child was missing. Now the story started to fall apart pretty quickly because of good, solid police work. But she would go on to tell a series of evolving lies over several weeks, only moving from one lie to the next as the police picked apart the first lie and presented her with the evidence that made the first lie untenable. So now it's time to move on to lie number 2, and 3, and 4. And as they're doing this with her, they're also also searching for his body, which they ultimately discovered about 6 weeks after his disappearance in a local landfill, in pieces, unfortunately. And as a result of all of that police work and investigative efforts,
Trigger warning for sensitive
which I
content.
think you'll be quite proud of when you hear about them in detail, the defendant is charged with his murder. So that's sort of the 50,000-foot view, the bluff, the bottom line up front for the military folks here. A little more detail on what happened, what the evidence will show. The 2 days that we're primarily concerned with here are October 4th and 5th of 2022, specifically the night of October 4th, moving into the morning of October 5th. Now, at that time, and I'll try to go slow for those of you who are taking notes.
Hi, sweet baby. Thank you for joining.
The defendant
Glad to see you.
is living
Opening statements. LEILANI Simon trial.
on the west side of Savannah, jurisdiction of the Chatham County Police Department, in this house that's roughly in the center, with an in-ground swimming pool in the back. It's on Buckhalter Road, 535 Buckhalter Road. She had most recently lived in North Carolina, where she had met and lived with her most recent boyfriend, Daniel Youngkin, who you'll hear about. And some months before October of 2022, they had moved down and were living in this house at 535 Buckhalter. Now, the house belonged to the defendant's mother, Billy Joe Howell, who you see here, and her husband, Thomas Howell, who is not the defendant's father, but is her stepfather. Also living in the house at that time is the defendant's brother, Paul Simon. They have the same mother and the same father. And Daniel Youngkin, her boyfriend from North Carolina, and the defendant's 3 children. October of 2022, she has 3 children by 3 different men. The oldest is Zane Wharton. I think you'll hear was roughly about 3 years old at the time. Zane has been through a lot with her. He's her firstborn son, and I expect you'll hear testimony that she considered him her ride or die.
Oh, well, good, sweet baby. Watch you here with me in the evenings.
Sky Youngkin is an
With
infant,
us.
far right there. That is her youngest child by Daniel Youngkin. And in the middle was Quentin. Quentin was her child by a man named Henry Bubba Moss Jr. You'll hear that she'd had kind of a tumultuous relationship with Mr. Moss, that they had split before she even knew she was pregnant with Quentin, and that he initially didn't even believe that she was pregnant when she told him, and that he was never a part of Quentin's life at all. And I expect you'll hear some testimony about the way that background influenced the way that she treated Quentin. But, you're supposed to love all your kids equally. You're supposed to treat them all the same. I expect you'll hear some testimony that didn't happen. That she treated Quentin differently, and not in a good way.
On the screen now is the Quentin's father, Bubba. That's his dad. He lived, come to find out, he lived 75 miles away from the defendant at the time when this happened, 75 or 85. But he hadn't seen the baby in over 7 or 8 months. He hadn't talked to or spoken with the defendant in that same amount of time. They met in 2019. By 2020, she was pregnant. They had a tumultuous relationship, a quick relationship, drug-fueled, and problematic. and that's when they broke up and separated, and pretty much he's been out of the picture. Okay, and so that's the biological dad. Let's continue.
Here's the house from the street. The master bedroom where defendant's mother, Billy Joe Howell, and her stepfather, Thomas Howell, lived is over here in the two-story portion of the house, but on the first floor. Brother Paul Simon's bedroom is upstairs, and you'll hear in one of the defendant's interviews, she'll say, you know, when you're up in that room, you can't really hear anything that's going on downstairs. It's kind of its own layer up there. Now, the defendant, Daniel, and the three children lived in a bedroom right through this front door. I think there was some sort of addition or something on the house at one point. This bedroom that they live in appears to be like a converted one-time living room or something like that. If you step through that front door, this is what you see. You see a couch in the foreground. You see a desk behind that. And then on the far wall there, you see a bed. That's the defendant and Daniel Youngkin's bed. If you pan to the right, you'll see a closet door here. And then it's hard to make out in this picture, but beyond this closet door is a door into a bathroom that then feeds into the dining room. And that is the only way to get from this room to the main body of the house. You see a race car bed there. That's where Zane slept. We further pan to the right. You can see that race car bed completely, and you see a projector on the wall, evidently for supposed for watching movies or something while you're sitting on the couch. And then if you pan into that right-hand corner, you see this pack and play. That's immediately to the right as you go in that front door. And that's where Quentin slept. That was Quentin's bed. Now, that sort of sets the scene as to who's living in this house and where they're sleeping.
Another house with a lot of people in it.
Before we come back to the morning of October 4th, I want to talk to you about what the evidence is going to show as far as what's the biggest thing going on in the defendant's life. And the biggest thing going on in her life in the months, days leading up to October 4th is the status of her relationship with Daniel Youngkin. Things are not good. She is feeling unloved, undesired, ignored. And I'll show you a couple of text messages taken from her phone by the investigators that show this. Now, this is kind of small on here, and it's kind of bright, so I'll read it for you for those of you who can't see. Some of you may be able to read it, perhaps not all of you can. This is July of 2022. I want to feel beautiful, not barely average. I want to feel loved and not just liked. I want to feel wanted, not just tolerated. I want to be able to look at you and know it's just me, not wonder how many others there are. I want to feel like my body is worth showing off, not like it's just been trashed from having 3 kids. I want to feel the way you made me feel in the beginning, like I'm treasured and safe, not like I'm just here because you really don't have a choice. And you'll see quite a number of messages like this. It's basically an unbroken string of text messages all the way up to the day that she kills Quentin. August 6th, yeah, go get yourself some ass. I know mine is not good enough. Never was, never will be. September 10th, you're the reason I'm angry every day. You're the reason I'm depressed, why I feel the way I do about myself. Now, this is not a minor thing for her. I told you it's probably the biggest thing emotionally going on in her life. The way that she perceives herself to be being treated by Daniel, and perhaps to some degree actually was being treated by him. It's at least how she feels. This is such a big deal for her that with her phone, at one point she filmed something that can only be described as a digital suicide note. All right, she's in the car, and you'll hear her at the end say, "I've got to go."
Can we say priorities in the wrong place?
She's in her car, evidently contemplating driving her car into a river and ending her life. And she starts out saying goodbye to her children. She has some kind words to say about Zane. She has some kind, loving words to say about Sky. You might perceive that she momentarily kind of seems to be at a loss for what exactly to say about Quentin, our victim, the middle child. And then she goes on to explain that the message is clearly addressed to Danny. She goes on to attribute what she's about to do to the way that Danny has treated her. Now, this is a 4-minute some video. It's a little long for an opening statement, but we're going to watch the whole thing. And we're going to watch the whole thing because it's an important window into her state of mind at this stage in time. This video was filmed in August of 2022, but the evidence in terms of the text messages and her statements will show that nothing really changed between when this video was filmed and October 4th of 2022. So with that preview, I'll play this for you now.
Speaking of narcissistic.
We were both in such fragile states.
Okay, so we're gonna pause right there, okay? How can I not pause right there? So we literally, this is a supposedly suicide last letter, right? Video message, right? Exactly. Living hit it on the head, right? Living hit it on the head. I say, do y'all notice anything about her mouth? And Sweet Family say her lips was kind of swollen. Girl, if her lips are swollen, it's from the drugs, okay? What I was noticing, and one of the biggest things that you can clearly see in this video, if you know anything about it, her mouth. She has an absolutely unmistakable dope mouth, okay? She has the mouth of a cokehead. The way her mouth is flexing, the way she grinding her teeth, the way she grimacing and pulling her mouth back, that is a telltale sign of cocaine use. Okay, if you're not aware, if you don't know, now you know. And how she was doing her mouth, now you have a indicator. Oh, this person might be using cocaine. That is nothing but a cocaine addict mouth. Period. The way she grinding and gritting and pulling, that's cocaine. Number two, do y'all notice that she did the preliminary, oh, let me address my kids, let me come across like I'm so concerned about my children, like I'm a loving mother. So she goes through she goes through that little bit. And when I say that, it's just a little bit. Oh, Zane, you're gonna be such a good man. Oh, Sky, I wish I could see you grow up. Oh, Quentin, you're just so happy all the time. She spends a couple of minutes acknowledging her children, which, mind you, she's talking about attempting suicide. So she want to tell her kids bye, okay. But when she gets to the meat and potatoes, right? When she gets to the meat and potatoes of who she really want to address, who attention she really wants, it's absolutely Danny's, the boyfriend. Daniel Youngkin. Okay, and we're going to hear more about him. I have some background information on Daniel. That's his name, Daniel Youngkin, that we'll get into as we proceed with this trial watch. But it's no mistaking who her focus is really on, who her priority is on. The state just opened this case with those text messages, saying about how much how he makes her feel like nothing, and how she yearns for his attention and care and love and touch, and on this video, it's no mistaking who her passion is for, who she is concerned about. And at the very end, well, you couldn't love me, take care of my children. Why would this man, who is your boyfriend at the time, the father of your third child, but not the other two kids, not your husband, it screams very, very put on, very falsely dramatic, right? Because what logic is it that she would tell him to make sure he takes care of her children? And just as a side note and a reminder from the timeline content that I gave a couple of days ago, we found out in that timeline that even though her and Danny, her boyfriend, was living at her mom's house with those 3 children, her mother actually had legal custody of the 2 boys. She had just had the baby girl. So she wasn't even in custody of her children. Very telling, right? Very, very telling. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with this opening statement. Hey, ZX. Glad to see you. Yeah, her attention is definitely on this man. That is absolutely her priority. And everything else in this very dramatic last suicide note, here's the river, there's the river now, it's just very telling. See how she clenching her teeth? That's the cocaine. Bye, Danny. Her last words is bye, Danny. You know, not bye, kids.
So that's where she was at. This is her emotional state in the summer,
Opening statement.
2022. That brings us back to October 4th. And here I'll give you sort of an overview of what the evidence is going to show us to the sequence of events of that day. Now, the first thing to establish is that on the relevant days here, Billy Joe Howell, the defendant's mother, and Thomas Howell, her stepdad, are out of town. They're not in town. They're not in the house. They are sort of out of play. I expect that would be undisputed. So that leaves in the house Paul, the defendant, Danny, and the three children, Zane, Quentin, and Scott. In the morning of October 4th, quite early in the morning, in fact, the defendant and Danny take the three children to babysitter Michelle McCardle and her two teenage daughters that live on the same street. They live like right across the street on Buckhalter. And it says babysitter up here, and I've called her the babysitter, but really you'll hear from Michelle, one of her daughters. And it comes across more like they're almost like a second family or a substitute family for these kids because of the parental shortcomings at 535 Buckhalter. So the evidence might show that babysitter kind of undersells it a little bit. And the child care arrangement was this. At this point in time, Danny and the defendant are working at a warehouse in Port Wentworth, unloading, loading boxes. They're carrying boxes at the warehouse in Port Wentworth. And their shift starts at 6 a.m. They're working the 6 a.m. shift. So early in the morning, on the way to work, they'll drop off 3 children with Michelle, with her 2 teenage daughters. And so they do that. And they both go to work. They clock in at essentially the exact same time, a little after 6 a.m. on October 4th. Now they clock out less than 2 hours later. And the reason they do that is the defendant is experiencing some kind of dental issue. She has a tooth that's bothering her, and it needs to come out. And so they clock out right around 8 o'clock, just before 8 o'clock in the morning, and they go to some type of like emergency dental clinic or walk-in dental clinic. And she gets a tooth pulled. These are some pictures, selfies she took of herself in the dentist chair. And you can see the side of her mouth on the left side there, I think, is kind of swollen. She sent these to Daniel, Young, and Danny, who was sitting out in the waiting room waiting for her. And so after this, they do not go back to work. They go home. And the rest of the waking hours of the day are pretty normal. They get some lunch. They relax. Her mouth is bothering her. She's tired. She's sore. And eventually, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, they go and they pick up the 3 kids from the babysitter, from Michelle, and they bring them home. So, at that point, Danny, the defendant, and the 3 kids are in the house. Now, Paul, he worked at the same warehouse, but he worked a later shift, and you'll hear what it is. It's something like 2 p.m. to late at night, around 10 or so. That was Paul's shift. So same place, different shift. So he's not there in the afternoon. Now they're there. They do dinner. They do bath time. They put the kids down. Quentin in his pack and play. I think you'll hear testimony or a statement from the defendant that Sky, the infant, slept on that couch that we looked at, and Zane in the race car bed. And I think it'll be undisputed, and I expect that it'll be undisputed, that Now, around 10 p.m., Quentin is fine. He's just in his crib, in his pack and play for bedtime, okay? And what happens at this point sets off a chain of events that goes over the next couple hours and results in tragedy. And that is that the defendant and Daniel have yet another argument about how he's treating her. This is sometime a little after 10 p.m. And that this is something she told to detectives eventually in some of her interviews. About how he doesn't want her, he doesn't want to touch her, he's not feeling desire for her like he used to. And we've already talked about this is a major trigger for her. This is the biggest emotional issue going on in her life, and it's significant. It drove her to the brink in the video that you've watched. This is not a minor thing for her. And so she leaves the house after 10 p.m. on the first of two trips that you'll hear a lot about in this trial, and that she didn't really want to talk about, at least truthfully, with investigators. And that first trip is to the drug dealer. She says that she left so that things wouldn't escalate between her and Danny. She was upset. That's her word. So it wouldn't escalate. The first place she goes is this Circle K. And I should have pointed out so you can see her getting out of the car. That's it.
Hi, Daniel.
29 p.m. So about 10:30. I'll back up and you can see her getting out of her Dodge Journey with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She's not in a good state.
That was her towards the bottom left of that picture.
Okay, she buys a couple convenience store items. And then she texts Danny. He's got her saved in his phone as Lanny Baby. She texts him, I'm going to run to 204, I guess. That's at 10:32. Immediately after she leaves the Circle K. She might still be in the parking lot for all we know. And 204 is an area you'll hear about in this case. It's sort of it's shorthand for our drug dealer. I'm going to run to our drug dealer. This is Highway 204 is what this is about.
Hey, Room Shaker.
And their drug dealer lives on the street right over there.
So 204 going forward is code word for the dope dealer.
Trying to make herself feel better.
That is gonna come up a lot.
This is a screenshot of some GPS plots from her.
Okay, so I have got to pause this right now because I have got to give y'all this. I just need to say this, right? Because I know in my research they had made different motions, of course, to try to suppress some things from coming in. Okay, and I can't remember whether these points I'm finna make was not allowed in, but we know it. I know it, so I'm finna tell y'all. So the prosecutor is making the case about LEILANI's state of mind that day was focused around the relationship between her and her boyfriend Danny and how that was going. That's all true, and it may be the case and played a big factor, but we also know, it's in the timeline video, make sure to check that out on the playlist, but we also know a month to the date of Quentin coming up missing, October 5th, almost a month before, on September 7th, LEILANI called the police out to their house, to her mother's house where she was crashing with her boyfriend. She filed a police report against her mother. Well, she didn't file the charges, but she called the cops out for a family domestic disturbance. Come to find out, I read the police report. It was about the wash machine was being used. She didn't file charges. Nobody went to jail, but the mother actually left the house for a few days. The mother, on September 7th, almost a month before this happened, told the police that same day before she left the house that she was thinking about that she may have to evict them. Talking about LEILANI and her boyfriend. The next day, September 8th, the mother goes to the magistrate and files eviction paperwork. And then, right a day or so before October 5th, when the baby came up missing and we find out unalived, right? LEILANI was served child support papers by the state of Georgia and her mama. So she had a lot of different things going on besides just the state of her relationship. She was in her mama house with her boyfriend, who the boyfriend she's saying don't love her no more. Her mama then filed eviction notice, and now she just got hit with child support orders because she was not in custody of Quentin. So she had a lot of different stuff going on up and to this point. And I think that the child support deal and the eviction stuff, I think that got suppressed and they could not bring that into the court. So that's why he's not mentioning it. But we know here on Trial Watch with Demetra. So keep that in mind, okay? Let's go ahead and continue. And thank you guys for joining the live. Let's continue. Okay, let me push play. Just wanted to point that out.
That the police eventually made.
Yeah, we will see, Sweet Vampy. We will see y'all.
And this red kind of blob up here is a series of GPS points showing that she's at the drug dealer's house on Arkwright Lane from about 10:45 p.m. to 10:55. And she's scoring drugs to use that night because she doesn't like the way she's feeling. This is some information exported from her cell phone extraction showing that while she was there at 10:49, she made an $80 cash app payment to a Timothy Weston, who is her drug dealer, or at least one of them. While she's gone, Paul gets home. He had clocked out at 9:56 p.m. And I think he will say that he took him a minute to get home because he was smoking a blunt in the parking lot or something like that. You're going to hear a lot about drug use in this case. And he gets home while the defendant is still out on this trip to the drug dealer. And he'll tell you that when he got home, he went in and said hey to Danny. And he saw the kids, he saw Quentin in his crib, in his pack and play. Quentin was fine. He even interacted with him a little bit. He'll tell you what it was. Hey, little man, how's it going? And he sees that Quentin is okay, he's fine. May not be completely asleep yet, but he's there and he's okay. Now, by 10 after 11, this is another GPS screenshot. It's hard to make out on this TV. But this is, by 10 after 11, she's got a bunch of GPS points sitting at the house on Buckhalter Road. And this is just to signify that this is around when she gets home. 10 after 11. And so she's home at that point. Paul is upstairs in his bedroom, going to sleep, kind of secluded from the rest of the family. And Danny eventually goes to sleep as well. And you'll hear her say this to the investigators, that she was the only one up and active in the middle of the night, in the hours leading up towards 1 a.m. Danny is sleeping because he's going to get up and go to work in the morning. He has to get up at sometime between 5 and 5:30 to go to work. And Paul was sleeping as well because he just got off work. He's tired. And you'll hear her say that I was the only one up and about. My tooth was hurting. I couldn't sleep. What she's doing is she's going on a bender. You'll hear her admit to this eventually with the police. She didn't want to talk about it initially, but you'll hear that she eventually acknowledged that she was up kind of frantically using drugs for an extended period of time while everybody else in the house is asleep and out of play. You'll hear her talk about it. I would hit a line. I would go outside. I would smoke a blunt to kind of bring myself down. Maybe smoke a cigarette. Then I'd hit another line and repeat the cycle. So she's in her house by herself, physically uncomfortable,
Not by
Cause
herself.
of her dental issue, emotionally wrecked because of what's going on with her and Danny. That's resurfaced again this night. Well, the resurface is probably not the way to put it, because it's just an ever-present problem for her. And this is a bad situation, right? This is a volatile, dangerous situation. And that's because you'll hear something that she later said during the investigation on a recorded call, on a recorded phone call to Daniel, who was cooperating with the police and trying to help them gain information about the effect that cocaine has on her. It's not just fun for her. You'll hear her say that it makes her angry and impulsive.
I become angry and impulsive when I'm on it.
And so those are the conditions. She's up all alone, physically uncomfortable, emotionally unhappy, unstable to some degree. And around 1 a.m. probably, she kills Quentin. Now I'm going to focus on the what.
Damn.
What she did and when things happened. And probably in closing argument when all the evidence is in, we'll talk to you a little bit more about the why. The why exactly in that moment did she do this. But for now, I want you to just understand the sequence of events and what happened when. She takes his body and puts it in Dodge Journey, Georgia tag TEN 9300. And she begins the cover-up. The cover-up is not just the lies to the police. The cover-up starts
Hey, Tamika, thank you for joining.
a little after 1 a.m. She drives down Buckhalter Road, which turns to the right here, but it's still Buckhalter Road at that turn. And comes into Ogeechee Road right here.
This is in Savannah, Georgia.
And she pulls into this mobile home plaza. It's right here. Mostly what you're seeing is trees, but there are mobile homes in here. This is Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. And there's a convenient standard dumpster sort of hidden away under some tree cover in the tree line there. And she throws Quentin's body away like a piece of trash at about 1:17 in the morning. She drives home. This is another export from her phone, showing that her phone was locked from 2:01 in the morning until 9:13 in the morning. And this is just kind of a shorthand way of saying that's roughly about the time she eventually goes to sleep. And her phone is inactive. Now Danny wakes up for work a little after 5, and he tries to wake her up to go to work. She's supposed to go to work with him. Remember, they work the same shift. She has been up all night doing drugs, and he's been, responsibly sleeping, so he's able to get up for work. And he cannot wake her up. She will not wake up. And at this point, he's trying to get out of the house to go to work. And he believes that all 3 children are there. He does not go over and check the packet plate. He doesn't even know that Quentin is gone. You saw in those pictures the packet plate is all the way across the room in the far corner. It's not right next to the closet. It's not right next to the bathroom. He can't wake her up to go to work, and he's annoyed by this because this is, I think he may tell you it's not the first time this has happened. And they are kind of tight on money. They are trying to make money to either put a down payment on a house or a security deposit on an apartment so they don't have to live with their mom anymore. And he'll tell you that he was frustrated by this. You're not going to get up and come to work and make money. And his decision at this time was to say, well, okay, you're not gonna come to work and make money, we're not gonna spend money on a babysitter today, because they have to pay, they're paying her.
Makes sense to me.
And so he texts Michelle, hey, the kids are gonna stay here with her today, Miss Michelle, at 5:20 in the morning. She says, okay. And the reason for that is his thought is, look, if you're not gonna get up and make money, you can stay here and watch the kids. Wake up and find these kids are still here. You can deal with them, they're yours. So he goes to work, and he clocks in at 6:11. 6 a.m., 6:11 a.m. And he will clock out at 9:15, a little over 3 hours later. And the reason that he clocks out at 9:15 is that at 9:14, 1 minute before the clock out, he gets a call from the defendant who's got him saved in her phone as King. And he's got the 910 area code. That's North Carolina, where he's from. Now, this is a 21-minute call. And she calls him, and the cover-up, initially I said, the cover-up starts with covering this up to him. Before the police ever, she covered it up to the police, but before they ever even get involved, she's covering it up to Danny. She calls him and she tells him that she woke up, the front door was open, and Quentin was gone. And he would run out to his car, leave work, and come home, and stay on the line with her for 21 minutes. Police went to the warehouse that they work at, and they got some video footage to see, well, what did Danny look like when he was leaving the house, leaving work, having gotten this call. And this video shows him running out. That's Danny running out of work. You'll hear from his boss, a fellow named David Mullins, that David ran into Danny in the parking lot. Danny's running out. Dave is just pulling in and getting to work. And they briefly encounter one another. And Dave will tell you, he looked genuinely upset. He was for real crying, tears coming down his face. Danny does not know what is going on. He knows what he's hearing from the defendant, and that's it. So he rushes home. And I'll tell you this. I told you the call to Danny was at 9.
Okay, quick interjection, right? It's nothing about a dumpster that can ever be good. It's nothing about a dumpster, no better dumpster than one than the other to do this type of horrific thing. However, I want to point out and show you guys, this is exactly the exact dumpster in front of this trailer park, the Azalea Mobile Home Trailer Park. This is a picture of the dumpster, not the day of. Okay, this is not a picture the day of, the event. However, I think it's pretty safe to assume, I'm going to assume that the dumpster is quite often like this. This is the dumpster at the exact location where she disposed of 20-month-old baby Quentin's body. This trial is not for the faint of heart. Okay? Let me see. Let me take this down. Just awful is absolutely right. Sweet Bama say, you don't know me very well, but trials are very different from the place you know me from, Lane. And I'm calmer when watching trials. It sounds weird, but it's true. Well, it doesn't sound weird. I'm a true crime fanatic, and quite often what I've done by doing this type of content with it, Lane, is now I'm sharing with you guys the type of content that I watch, like at the end of the day. Like I might be watching the beef section and all kind of stuff all day, but a lot of times at night I'm watching the trial. And the trial, and the trials right now, it's a lot of trials going on right now, headline trials, right? But this is the one I picked because of its impact. Let me push play on this because I know it's late.
9:14. As he's on the way home, on this call with the defendant where ADT records. There's an ADT security system on this house, and it keeps track of when each door was opened and closed, or just opened, or just closed, having been opened. Police got these records, and you'll see that that front door didn't open until 9:22 in the morning on October 5th. Now that's 6 minutes in, 6 or 8 minutes in to that call with Danny. And so what the evidence is going to show that she's on the phone with him saying, I woke up and the front door was open and Quentin was gone. And it's during that phone call that she's opening the front door. So you'll hear that she's essentially tampering with evidence, tampering with the scene, staging the scene to fit with her story before the police ever become involved. Danny gets home. Somehow babysitter Michelle got wind that this was going on. Maybe she heard screaming or something. She'll tell you how she heard about this when she testifies. She comes over. Paul hears yelling, comes downstairs, and now everybody's there and they're looking for Quentin. And the defendant, of course, is the only person who knows where he actually is, and that's in a dumpster at Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. And they call 911, and here's what the defendant says. Police show up a little before 10 a.m. and she repeats the same story to them. The evidence will show that that car that's like the furthest one, the most recent one that entered the driveway, is the babysitter's, Michelle's. She had pulled up and parked her white Pathfinder there. But in any case, the defendant repeats that story to the responding officers, and you'll hear from some of them. Now, this is a missing child. So situations like this, it's all hands on deck. Everybody comes out. Forensics comes out. The forensics unit came out, had a drone up looking for Quentin. Patrol officers are being pulled from other beats, other areas of patrol, to canvass the area and look for Quentin in the woods. All sorts of people are coming. Most of the command staff for the Chatham County Police Department showed up because this is a big deal and they take these things very seriously. One of the specialized units that responded after patrol officers had gotten there was the detectives for the Chatham County Police Department, CID, the Criminal Investigations Division. And the first detective there for CID is a guy you'll hear from, Sean Wilkins. Sean Wilkins shows up, and he's the one who conducts the first, what you call more like the first formal interview with the defendant. And most notable from that statement that he takes from her at this time is when she says she went to bed and when she says she got up. And you'll hear that she tells him, I went to bed around midnight and I got up around 9. She doesn't say anything at all about this trip to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza a little after 1 a.m. She doesn't want to talk about that because that's the trip that she took to get rid of Quentin's body. So here's her telling Wilkins, I went to bed around midnight and I got up around 9 a.m.
When's the last time you saw your child?
When I went to bed last night.
And what time was that? Do you remember?
Around 12.
12? Okay.
12 when I went to bed. I had my wisdom teeth removed yesterday.
I'm sorry, that's
So I went to bed kind of late.
I get you. Listen, I had them up too.
So I got up this morning about 9.
About 9?
And my front door is open, so I went up and I shut it, not thinking about anything like that. And I look over and check my kids, and he was gone. All the rest were there. He was gone.
It's all right. It's all right.
Went to bed at midnight, woke up around 9. No mention of the Azalea trip. I told you there were 2 trips. 2:04 earlier in the night, 10:11. Trip number 2 is that Azalea trip, a little after 1 a.m. And she is totally omitting that.
Sidebar, right? It's nothing, this is personal opinion. It is nothing more dangerous in the world than a practiced liar. Okay? A practiced liar who can just lie with no hesitation and lie just so and just keep the lie going and add on to the lie and make new lies to match his lie. Those are some dangerous, dangerous, dangerous people in my opinion, right? And so we was talking about the fact that they had to search for through this landfill for 32 days, right? And they just kept searching, kept searching. Interesting fact. Y'all know Adam Walsh from America's Most Wanted. Y'all know Adam Walsh, you know that his son a million years ago was kidnapped. We all know that, right? So the Adam Project is a team that goes and searches for missing children, right? And the Adam Project, the Adam team, Team Adam, it's called Team Adam. Team Adam, one of the things that they're really, one of their specialties is searching for children's bodies in landfills. Okay, so they called on Team Adam. Team Adam stepped in, and so Team Adam was pretty much able to tell them from their experience, over 30 years of experience with these type of searches, they was able to pinpoint like stuff like how far down to go through the trash to find the body, right? They was able to give like specific searching points and searching tactics that made it possible. Just a little side note there. It was called Team Project from Adam Walsh from what is it called? America's Most Wanted. I thought that was interesting doing my research. Let's continue. Let's see.
Now, all hands on deck, right? Missing child. There are detectives working on this case that aren't even out at the scene from the very beginning. One of them is a Chatham County police detective you'll hear from named Kiana Robbins. Kiana Robbins is at the Islands precinct, I think it's
Lady Steph, the father was just a fly-by-night, like a one-night stand that lasted for a couple of nights, right? And it wasn't even a long-term relationship. You know, she met him, she got pregnant for him, and she actually had separated from or left even the city that the baby daddy was in while she was still pregnant. She was living in a different city, had nothing to do with the baby's daddy by the time she even gave birth. He didn't even find out that she had given birth, or number one, he didn't know she was pregnant at the time when she left and went to another city. Number two, it was months later that he found out that she had been pregnant and had given birth to their son. And in my research, the father, you know, I'm not finna just talk about him back because he barely comes up, right? He's like a non-factor in the situation. But he also had a drug issue. He also has a criminal record, you know. At the time of this happening, the mother, the granny to the kids, Billy Joe Howell, she was in physical custody of the two boys. The baby girl, she was only a couple of months old when this happened. You know, and the grandmother, Billy Howell, we're going to get into that a little bit later in this trial watch.
Computer as she's researching. She's seeing if she can find some helpful information. This is a stock photo of what's called a flock camera. The flock system is a series of cameras that are set up around town at major intersections or along busy roads. And what they do is they snap a picture of the license plates of all the cars that drive by. And police can use these for a number of different things. One of the things they can use them for is, say you have somebody who flees from a traffic stop and actually gets away, and the police can't pursue them without undue danger. They can take that tag number of that individual, they can put it in the flock system and put like a lookout out for them. If that tag hits on any other cameras, it'll alert the police and they can try again and make the traffic stop. Another thing that the police can do, and what Detective Robbins did, was look up vehicles registered to the defendant. She finds that Dodge Journey that the defendant drove to dispose of Quentin's body. And she puts it into the flock system, looks it up in the database to see what, if any, flock cameras that vehicle has hit on anytime recently. And she sees that that car has been out late at night, driving around on trips that the defendant hasn't mentioned yet. She radios that information, or maybe calls via phone. This is the tag she looks up. That's the Dodge Journey in the driveway at the time of the police response. She calls Lieutenant Foster, who you'll hear from. This is after the defendant has told Wilkins that she went to bed at midnight and woke up at 9, hasn't mentioned anything about the Orangeville trip or the Azalea trip. Foster goes up to her. He now has this information that this tag has been hidden on some flock cameras and seems to have been driving around during the night. And he goes up to her, and he's a lieutenant at this point, which is like kind of a managerial type position. He's, by this time, is the senior man on scene, I believe. But he has a background in investigations. He was with the Savannah Police Department, I think, at one point, in their violent crimes unit, investigating homicide. So he knows his way around an investigation. He knows how to do these sort of things. He goes up to her armed with this information about the flock hits at night. He wants to know what these trips were about. So he goes up to her and he asks her, "Hey, did you go anywhere last night?" And he's a savvy guy, so he's careful to tack on, like where the kidnapper could have followed you home. And she seems to know, the evidence will show that she seems to know that he knows something about this trip to Azalea that she took and has not mentioned to this point. And so she comes up with a story. It's not totally clear when she came up with it. But the story is that, that trip that I took away from my house shortly after 1 a.m., that was to go pick up Orangeville from a friend at the Chevron. Now the Chevron is right next to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. They're kind of right next to each other. And so that's her story as to what she was doing driving to that location at that time. My tooth was bothering me.
Hey, Renee.
I went to pick some up and got some.
You're late.
This is the first appearance of the Orangeville story, which lasts for about a week or so. Maybe a week and a half.
Did y'all go anywhere last night or yesterday with baby? That maybe he could have followed you or something like that? Y'all didn't go anywhere? No, just maybe you yourself.
Yeah, I know. I could have got my tooth pulled yesterday, so you had me. I went to go to the Orangeville. That was it.
2 o'clock yesterday afternoon?
No, like morning at Mars, and I couldn't go to sleep.
Okay, so where'd you go?
Right up the road, right here, that Chevron. My friend that I used to work with, she had Orangeville because they didn't have me. I said, okay, I'm home.
Okay. Did you go anywhere else? Have you maybe been home? So when did you get home?
I can tell you exactly. What did you do too? I was home at 1:25.
1:25?
So I was gone for literally 12 minutes.
All right, so that's the story about what I was doing when I drove there. Now, I'll tell you this. She's trying to show them.
Dang, I'm going to have to keep it big like this, I think.
An app called Life 360. Life 360 kind of generally tracks your movements. You can join with your family, and they can see where you are and have been, and vice versa. You may be wondering, well, if this trip was so sinister in nature, why is she trying to show it to them on her phone? And you'll hear testimony that the reason that she was comfortable holding out her phone
This is the state opening statements, Renee.
is that, again, the Chevron and Azalea Mobile Home Plaza are right next to each other. And
But he just got to her first lie.
can't necessarily tell which one.
So you ain't that late.
The general area. So she believes that this kind of helps prove that I'm telling the truth about being at the Chevron. Now, the police would later pull very precise GPS data from the phone, like not just looking at the screen, but from the actual phone, that puts her not at the Chevron, but right at the dumpsters at Azalea, which are, I don't know, maybe 100 yards, 75 yards from the Chevron.
I just be having to cut in sometime and get his commentary, right? So I just said about you have to watch out for these just liars like this, right? So in the midst of her coming up with this story, she get caught in her first lie. The red light camera catches her car. Even though she don't know this, that's why the cop is steady questioning her about, are you sure you didn't go anywhere? Are you positive you didn't go anywhere? So at this point in time, she's like, damn, they must know something I don't know. Right? And so, with that being the case, she come up with this ordeal story. In a midst, hey Sassy, good evening. Oh, I'm sorry, Lady Steph. I gotta keep that in mind, right? But what I'm finna say? Oh, the lie. Wait. What I'm finna tell y'all? Oh, the audacity, right? She is so committed to these lies that she's telling, that she just making up on a whim, that she literally try to use her phone to prove her lie. That's that narcissistic, right? That's that ego. That's them type of liars that just lie so much that they actually try to show you proof of something they know ain't never happened. You know, it's very telling of how far she could go. That she literally was like, here, look at my phone, look at my tracker, you can see where I went. Yeah, right. Let's continue. Opening statements. Thank y'all for joining. Please hit the like.
But that's why she's holding the life for 60 hours.
Sorry, Lady Stale.
This helps me. So that's the first appearance of the Origel story, to explain the Azalea trip. The police take all three of the adults in the house. Eventually they say, we really need you to get Danny, Cole, and the defendant to the police station, sit them down for formal interviews, and just get like a complete sequence of the day from all three of these people. And the first interview with the defendant takes place in something that they call the lactation room or the nursing room. I think you sometimes also hear these things referred to as mothering rooms. And the reason for that is that Danny was in the single interview room that they have with the cameras wired up in the corners and all that. And this video is recorded on Detective Marion Lemon's phone. Now, by this time, this is a joint federal and local investigation. The FBI has shown up because they get involved in kidnappings, abduction cases. And what happens at headquarters is that they pair off teamwork. One FBI agent, one detective, and they each in a pair interview each of these people. And so Detective Lemons is paired up with Special Agent Brad Snyder, whom you'll hear from. And they were kind of partners throughout this investigation. And it's very open-ended at the beginning. What they're asking for is just give us an account of your day. Give us an account of the last 24 hours. Where have you been? What have you done? And so you'll hear Snyder asking them this. The video is really nothing special. I think it's just ceiling tiles the entire time because the phone is sitting on a table. But the audio is good. You can hear her. And she starts with, we left the dentist and came home. So she does start at the beginning.
So right now, again, we're sorry for everything. I mean, we can't imagine the emotions that you're feeling right now. But it's difficult. Just kind of being the last 24 hours. And just kind of give me, what you've been through in the past 24 hours. So we're talking 24 hours would be this time yesterday. So from about 1 o'clock yesterday, just want to tell me your
So that's the start. I was leaving the dentist, getting my wisdom tooth pulled. And the end is the Origel story, the Chevron Origel story that she has as her last trip of the night. Again, she omitted that to Wilkins, is now had to come up with a story to cover this trip.
Look, that was really bothering me about.
I assure you guys, the volume problem I have, I forgot on this first part, but by the time we get into the witnesses, I remember to cut up the volume, like, when I'm recording these clips. So sorry about that, y'all.
Almost one in the morning to call Circle K to see if they have orange out. No. So I got to call them about another one of my friends named Misty that I used to work with. He has a lot of mouth problems, and asked her if she had any orange out. And met her up there at the Chevron. And I called her and got back and back home. We also 12 minutes. I got it for like 360. I could show y'all right, bro. Everything was on the little bills I hear back. Get home, turn my mouth, check all the kids again, they were okay.
Now, a couple things about this initial interview in which she's asked to give an account of her movements for like the last 24 hours. No mention whatsoever of the trip to the drug dealer. She doesn't want to talk about what she was doing that night in the state that it put her in. So that's omitted completely from this interview. And now she's put a name to the friend who gave her the orange ale. Misty is what she calls her. Now, I'll tell you before we move on from that, I'll tell you this. The police asked her to go through her phone, and of course she's playing, the victim. I'm the victim, the mother victim of a child abduction. So she probably feels some pressure to cooperate, and so she lets him go through her phone. A couple things I see is there's no call to Misty, and there's no call to Circle K to check and see if they have Orajel, which is something she said. First I called Circle K to check and see whether they had Orajel. They didn't, so then I called Misty. None of that in there at all. They also see a message from the defendant to Danny. We looked at this earlier. This is when she's leaving the Circle K and is about to go to the drug dealer at 10:30. Going to run to 204, I guess. This is something that she had left out in this initial interview with Snyder and Lemons. So they interview her again, and this time it's in the interview room. And they want to ask her, what's the deal with this 204 thing? Here's what she tells them. Oh, yeah, that was a trip to the drug dealer, but it wasn't actually to buy drugs. She tells them that the reason that she left the house at 10:30 at night and went to her drug dealer and was there for 10 minutes was
Hey, Daquan.
to pay off a pre-existing drug debt in the amount of $20. Now, the evidence will show that that story is just absurd on its face. But in addition to that, the cash app was for $80, not $20. And she'll later admit that this story wasn't true. But here she is launching.
So her story is she went to the drug dealer house for 10 minutes to pay off a $20 drug debt, but she paid off the $20 drug debt with cash app. Hello? So she went, okay, let that soak in. She went to the drug dealer house to pay off a drug debt, but she paid via cash app. Let's continue. Lies don't care who tell it.
Yeah, and I was already heading back by the time that.
So at 10:40, you texted him that you were turning on 204 to go meet with him?
Yeah, like I'm turning on 204 now, like I'm about to meet him. That's what I was trying to tell him. So,
And at that point, you didn't get anything.
no, I just paid him $20. I gave him $20 my left. It was a couple days ago.
She's paying off a $20 debt, not actually buying drugs. Because after all, she tells them, other than marijuana, I don't use drugs.
See, you didn't get a Percocet for red. You were after.
No, I just gave him $20. And even if I didn't want to get a person, I'd get $35. Last time I asked him. Last time? I was expressing. I don't do it like that. Like, anything, anybody gotta worry about anything with me is on me. That was me. I'll be
strong, detailed denial of the use of any drugs other than marijuana. And the reason they're asking her whether she got a Percocet from the drug dealer that night is that they had seen some messages about buying Percocets as well when they went through her phone. And they asked her about that. What about these text messages with you? Look like you're buying Percocets.
Who says they only smoke homegrown weed?
Story
Child,
this time is, oh, those are for a friend. I'm just the middleman.
you can't even find regular weed,
Cheyenne.
let alone homegrown.
But doesn't, I guess, know a dealer herself.
Things that you just have to answer for, so we have to get a better understanding as to, what went on. That we gave us authorization to go through the text messages. There's text messages in there unless you purchase and post it. As recently as within the past 24 to 48 hours. So just, I don't know if that data or if you totally understand that. What's your story?
Sometimes when you ask me if I've done it, I haven't done it recently. I did have a friend who's trained. Trained Crosby, who lives in Florida. She will call me from time to time. My place to call off. She called me a long ago, asking for a register or whatever if I can get it. And I gave it for her. I dropped it off. Whatever work they dropped off, they should have wanted it up. So, but no, we haven't been messing with her since.
She does not want to talk about her drug use that night because that contributed directly to the state of mind that she was in and relates so closely to her killing Quentin in the middle of the night. So she feels that she has to tell these lies. And she wants to focus on 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. because after all, this is an abduction. It's not as though I did anything in the middle of the night. My child was taken after Danny left for work. That's her story. That's what she's trying to sell. And again, she forcefully denies this.
No, I did not. I did not take a Percocet right now. I will piss and cup for you right now.
Now, police follow up. Okay, October 5th, they get statements from the defendant, where she's making all these claims that we've talked about. They get a statement from Paul, they get a statement from Danny. And what you do, and this goes late into the night, eventually it's kind of time to stop on October 5th and wake up in the morning and follow up on some of this stuff. So she has said that she was at the Chevron getting Orajel from Misty, her former co-worker. And so they go out and there are two real notable things that happen between the October 5th statements on day one and the next interview. And one is that they do what they call a video canvas. They go out to this Chevron area where she has said that this Orajel exchange happened. And they look around and they see if they see any cameras. They go in and they ask if there's footage. And they get footage from the Chevron. And it does not show her stopping there. In fact, it shows her driving by. And they get footage from Azalea next door. And this is a major break in the case, because what the Azalea footage shows is her pulling in, doing a loop around the complex, and pulling up to the dumpsters and sitting there for about 2 minutes. And that's when she throws Quentin's body away. So you're going to hear in detail about the footage from Azalea, the different cameras and camera angles and what you can see on which one. But this is just a sample of that. And this is her driving in the Dodge Journey.
Okay, so this is her by the dumpster in front of that mobile home.
On a mission to throw away her dead child.
You can't beat these cameras, baby.
So that's one notable.
Look how she looking.
follow-up that leads into the next interview. The other is that they go talk to Melissa Missy Bray. The defendant's calling her Misty on the first night. She doesn't even get her name right. But she describes her as a former co-worker from Bojangles. So Special Agent Snyder goes out to Bojangles, asks whether they could direct him to this person. They do. He goes out and he interviews her. And he asks her when the last time that she saw the defendant was. And she tells him, I haven't seen her for months. The last time that I saw her was when she ran it. It was like in July of 2022, months before what we're talking about. The defendant had run out of gas near Missy's house, had walked to Missy's house, and had borrowed a gas can. And their last contact was Missy texting her a few times, saying, hey, can I get that gas can back? And that was it. And that was months before. And Special Agent Snyder looked at these messages, and they corroborate what Missy is telling him. So, Chevron story, the met Missy at Chevron story is now just completely torpedoed. And so they bring her in for another interview on October 8th. And this one is with an FBI agent named Bridget Brock. And it's conducted at the FBI office in Savannah. And they confront her with these two findings. One, the security footage from Azalea and from Chevron. And two, what Missy has told them. And she just sticks to the origin story and just insists that it is true. And this is what that sounded like. She just hasn't had time yet to figure out how she's going to play this with this new information that they're presenting her with.
We'll talk about that, okay? Because Misty hadn't talked to you. Yeah, she has. She hasn't talked to you in quite some time. Yeah, she has. She did not have a conversation with you about the ordeal. Yes. So in your mind, you've looked at all these timestamps, and plausibly you came up with a story that's partly true. No, that is true. But there's very, very many missing pieces, right? And in your story, you haven't been completely honest about where you were at and why you were there. I was 100% honest about where I was at. I showed the Life 360. I told them I even gave them the ordeal that she gave me. Right, and that didn't happen. We've already interviewed this. Yeah, I got the ordeal. That did happen. She had a mold inside of her mouth. That's the reason why I asked her for it. You have to stop saying this. It did not happen. Yes, it did.
Baby, she holding on to these lies.
Sticking to her guns. Now, October 12th, she comes in for another interview. And this is with Brad Snyder, who I've talked about already, who you've heard a little bit from and seen a little bit of, and an FBI agent named Savannah Solomon that he works with closely. And this is at the FBI office. And this is a long interview. I've pared it down a little bit so we don't have to spend 3 hours watching it during the trial, but it's still fairly long. And initially, at least, she's sticking to the origin story. That's Savannah Solomon on the left, Snyder on the right, and the defendant in the middle.
And I did. I did.
I did meet Misty.
Still calling the woman by the wrong name.
I'm telling you. And she tells this kind of flowery story describing this meeting. She lavishes them with details about how this went down.
So you went to Missy's house, and did you go inside her house? She was just standing outside. How long did y'all interact there with Missy? How long did y'all?
2 minutes. It was a quick little conversation. Almost an hour. She does some crack and stuff. She did. She was outside.
Now, she using this woman, who she ain't talked to in months. She using this woman as her alibi. She done left the house, let her tell it, to go get Oragel from Missy, who she calling Misty. Now, what Missy did to deserve this woman sitting up there talking about she a crackhead and that she was outside smoking crack when she got the Oragel? Okay? This girl here got some audacity, some nerves. Let's continue.
Now she has Misty when she gave the defendant the warning.
The prosecutor copying off of my commentary.
What's wrong here is when the defendant is lying and telling a story to cover something up that she did.
Objection, Your Honor, at this point in time, this is opening statements. Mr. Dean has the right to say what he expects the evidence to show, not his interpretation of it. So,
Sustained. Mr. Dean, I'm going to ask you to move forward.
The evidence will show that she added this detail to suggest a faulty memory on Misty's part. To suggest that, you know.
Oh, that's why she said she a crackhead. Okay.
She hadn't seen me. And it is nothing to her to just accuse Missy of having smoked crack during this meeting that didn't happen. But in any case, a few minutes later, she finally admits that she didn't see Missy.
She's got to understand that she looked like to be 100% truthful. 100%. That's the only way that we're going to get the outcome.
I didn't speak the truth. I didn't tell her in the house to just follow us.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Because,
If the light was on, we're not going to.
did you do any work about tonight?
I didn't know it that
What
night.
did you do with that?
I was going to I found it, and the car was one of the ones I lost. And I found it when I got back to the house.
So after insisting on the 5th, she met Missy at the Chevron from Orangeville. And after insisting on the 8th,
I
that was the
can.
truth.
Can
And
you hear
after
me?
insisting, even at the outset of this interview, that it
Yeah,
was
hey,
true,
mic check, mic check.
She
Mic
finally
check, ready for
admits that it
news
wasn't
at
true.
noon.
and
It's gonna be so crazy and so
massages
fun.
the
Never
inconsistency
knew.
by
So
saying,
cool.
you know, I didn't speak to
Yeah,
her,
thank you.
but I did go there with the intent.
Okay, what y'all just heard was the camera crew that's in the court. They was doing the micro check and doing all that. They dropped the ball on that one. Okay, when I heard that, I was like, what? But yeah, the state is definitely they presenting pretty much all their case. They showing details and everything. It's a very elaborate opening statement. Very. Wait till y'all see the prosecutor and what he say. But I don't think we're gonna see it tonight. We're gonna see this part, and I think I'm gonna come back tomorrow. Hopefully, I'm gonna try my best and see the end of it. But let's continue.
And she adds a detail that hasn't been included in any of her stories to date. Oh, and by the way, yeah, you've asked me if I threw any trash away there. Yeah, I did throw some trash away. She has a story for what that trash was. The evidence will show she did not want to admit that it was Quentin's body. So she describes this trash that she threw away as stinky shrimp pasta that had been sitting in the car in a trash bag and smelling up the car.
Maybe it was just another kind of trash that I picked up the trash. He's standing for this kid right off 2 days ago, and there's full of food all in my car. So I pulled around and see my dad's talking to the trash. Yeah. There's quarts, like shrimp pasta. Yeah. The whole car's like shrimp. You know, I don't eat. Even that was just standing there. So, what is that smell? I felt like before I even let go to a floor. You know? I didn't go to the floor. I'm like, get out of the floor. I love it.
And they ask her about this. Gosh, you know, this is the most critical fact in the case. Throwing Quentin's body in the dumpster at Azalea, what she was doing at Azalea Mobile Home Plaza at 1:17 in the morning or so. And her explanation for that is, you know, it's just such a minor thing, throwing away some trash, and I didn't think to mention it in my hours from previous interviews.
I didn't stop. It was the only stop that I didn't think anything of. To be honest, it's just all food up in the corner. See what I'm doing with it out.
He does not want to talk about what was in that trash bag. They also revisit the drug use, and you'll remember that the strong denials on October 5th, which are repeated on October 8th. On this October 12th interview, she admits finally that, I did take a Percocet that night.
And you had a Percocet in conjunction with story.
Yes, that's what I'm like. Because I took it as soon as I got home. I went outside and took a cigarette.
And
By the time,
about what time would you have done that?
by the time I got home, I took it like 11 something or whatever.
Baby, they pulling out the truths,
So Snyder asked her,
piece by piece by piece by piece.
story. You've been adamant that you met Misty for Oragel, and now you're finally admitting to us, I actually didn't speak to her. You've initially, over the course of 2 interviews, maybe more, didn't mention throwing trash away, and now you've got a very detailed account about doing that and what it was. And you, on the 5th, were adamant that you hadn't used any drugs other than marijuana, and now you're telling us that you did take a Percocet too. What's going on? Why is the story changing? And her explanation for that is, my faulty memory might have something to do with all the cocaine I was doing that night, which is a drug that had totally been absent from all of her prior accounts, and fits much more with the $80 cash app than the story about paying off the drug front. And so she is explaining her inconsistent stories by adding another inconsistency, which is an admission to cocaine use.
Taylor has requested a short break, and that makes sense. Let's take a 10-minute break and resume with.
Okay, so I'm going to actually go ahead and play the second part so we can do the opening statements. It's only 20 more minutes, right? So it makes sense just to go ahead and finish the opening statements on this live. Thank y'all for riding with me, and thank y'all for, staying tuned in. We're going to go ahead and get to the second part. This was part 1, but it's actually still a state. But it's 23 minutes. Let's go ahead and finish out the opening statements. And when we come back, we'll start with witness number 1, the first officer on the scene, Officer Stewart. But let me get to, okay, let me see. That Quentin Nixon, I don't know if you're familiar with that Sweet Vampy, but baby, that case got a lot going on. And so we will be picking that back up when it goes back to trial, when it starts back up November 5th. They was covering that on Crime and Trials Network. And on Court TV, but they're not streaming it on Court TV. Okay, here go part 2. My part 2. Okay. And like Sarah Boone, you're gonna notice for my trial watchers, you're gonna notice one thing similar with LEILANI Simon, our defendant in this case, and Sarah Boone.
Thank you.
This defendant likes to take a lot of notes.
And so,
okay.
for the record, the jurors are all back.
She
They are
steady
being
had passing
seated
notes to the
at
attorneys.
this time.
Hold on, let me see. Y'all can't see it. Where is it?
Right, all 16.
Boom.
Thank you.
There you go.
And
And there's the
Dean will
judge. This is the first time you're seeing the judge. This is Judge Tammy Stokes. I just love her. She is so cute.
So,
Hold on, let me see what y'all saying.
October 12th,
So, Lady Steph say, oh, so you're familiar with that trial. So that is a crazy trial, and we over here in the Lit Lane jury box, baby, we was getting it in with our conspiracies and our thoughts. That trial is something, right? They did it wrong by stopping it. Lady Steph say Quentin Nixon's, he was probably spinning after Quentin raised all those opposing questions to the witnesses. Right, exactly. I'm trying to say his judge probably have more questions. Right. And I have really, I pretty much have been looking and Googling it to see if they release any more information about the trial, and I'm going to continue doing so. But so far, the only thing I've been able to find is that it's on hold, on the continuance is what they call it, because of evidentiary issues. That's all they say. And I got a feeling that whatever them issues is, it may, just may, be playing for the benefit of Quentin. And don't forget, he pro se, being his own lawyer, that's a mess. You know, the state got their hands full. So this is the judge, Judge Tammy Stokes. And she's so pretty and classy. And when I was kind of watching it and checking it out and doing my recording, I was getting so aggravated with the chat, because I ain't gonna even lie. They seen the chat over on Court TV and stuff like that. They seem to be so racist. You know, the things they were saying about this judge, it just seemed so prejudiced. You know, like the comments they was making, I was like, thank God I don't have to sit here and just really watch this trial with this chat, because I don't think I've been able to handle it, period. And I was like, okay, I'll really just, you know, do my chat on Lit Lane. You know, once somebody was saying something, they was making comments like, this judge on CP time, all kind of stuff. I was just like, for real? Well, Sweet Vampy, in Quentin Nixon's case, it's not going all the way against him. But don't get me caught up on Quentin Nixon, child. Let's get into finishing this opening statement. And the state of Georgia versus LEILANI Simon. It was law and crime chat. Hold on. Let me think. Yeah, they showing this trial on law and crime. This is the WTOC, and they wasn't doing that. But I noticed they was doing that with, they probably maybe not normally like that. But when it came down to this judge, I did notice that, because I was like, oh my God. I had got offended. And I love law and crime. I like all of them. But I definitely noticed that, you know.
Okay, thank you. And so, for the record, the jurors are all back. They are being seated.
And I found it to be unusual myself. I hadn't normally seen that.
All right, all 16. Thank you. And Mr. Dean will resume with his opening statement.
So, October 12th, and we've come a long way from the October 5th account of only using marijuana that night. And this is where we end up on October 12th.
Just before we left, we were taking the trash survey. You had cocaine, oils,
And in this interview, she acknowledges that this wasn't like the one night she used cocaine. She's a regular user of cocaine, which she had denied in earlier interviews. Now, at the end of the day, the most critical thing though is what happened to Quentin. What happened to Quentin in the middle of the night. And here is what she had to say about that. I don't know if I did something to him, but if I did, I will take responsibility. She appears to be claiming something like a lack of memory, and I'll tell you that the evidence that you'll see is going to show that when she drove to those dumpsters at Azalea to throw Quentin's body away, you can see that she's driving normally. You'll see that she comes to a complete stop at stop signs. She uses her turn signal. You'll hear evidence that the investigators could tell from her phone that she plugged her phone into the USB charger in the car when she got in. So the evidence will show that she was aware of what she was doing when she took him there, and that her claims to just not know what happened cannot be true. They do not fit with the other evidence. We've talked a lot about what she has been saying to the police and the FBI on the 5th, on the 8th, on the 12th. But we haven't talked much about the other aspect of the investigation, which is the effort to find exactly what happened to him. So I'll talk a little bit about that now. Now, on October 18th, police announced that they believe Quentin's body to be in a local landfill, and that they're about to begin this extremely challenging needle in a haystack search of the landfill. And this is how they got there. A detective with the Chatham County Police Department goes out to the mobile home plaza once these dumpsters become an area of interest after they've looked at the security footage. And he asks what garbage truck company services these dumpsters, and they give him that information. He gets in touch with that garbage truck company, and he learns that it was truck 309 from a company, 3909, I should say, from a company called Waste Pro.
So this is how they found out exactly what truck and where to look in that landfill.
Serviced the mobile home plaza. This is on the morning of October 5th, actually. Quentin wasn't in the dumpster for very long because it was empty that day.
Him, Renee.
And this, what I'll tell you next, kind of goes to explain Quentin's condition when they ultimately found him. Not an intact body, but in pieces, little pieces, bones. So front-loading garbage truck extends its hydraulic forks into the slots on the side of the dumpster and drops Quentin and all the other garbage into the box in the back of the truck. There's a compactor.
That sounds so horrible.
Compacts everything. You want that compactor in there so that the truck doesn't have to go to the landfill as frequently. It makes the garbage smaller and take more garbage. That truck went to the Waste Management Superior Landfill on Little Neck Road on the morning of October 5th. This is a landfill ticket. They weigh the trucks when they're coming in. That's how they know how much to charge the garbage truck company for this particular load. This is for Waste Pro truck 3909. And with this information,
That's the landfill.
detectives go out and they talk to the landfill manager, and he's able to identify the area that garbage was being dumped and then kind of shoved to on October 5th, and this kind of general area up here, that becomes the search area. So
Let me pause it. So if you look at that landfill where he had his hand at, like pointing at the top of the screen, that's actually like the mountain of garbage, right? So when you look at the workers and where they're standing, and then you look at what looks like a mountain or a hill, that's literally the trash. It's a mountain of trash. And notice that he started explaining about the trash truck and its compactor, right? That's because, unfortunately, when they found little Quentin's body, it had been through the compactor. So they didn't find this baby's body intact. As disturbing as that is the reality. They didn't find Quentin. They found pieces of Quentin.
Like a general box in the landfill of where Quentin is going to be found. But this is still an extremely difficult thing. Even if you know the general area, there's like 2 more days of trash that have since been dumped there since the 5th. And this stuff gets compacted and moved around. They drive these compactors over it that have studded metal rollers, and everything just gets shredded. You may have this idea that you go into a landfill and it's just like a pile of bags of trash, just like they were when you put them in your garbage can at home. It is not like that. You will see that it is not like that. Everything is shredded because compaction is the name of the game in landfills. You will hear that. You got to get everything pressed down real tight because space is money. So, at the end of the day, they have tons and tons of garbage to search through, and so they arrange the landfill search. They have some consultants from an outside agency come in and advise on this because it's a very technical thing. These consultants are able to tell them, based on the size of the box, about how many tons of trash they'll have to search through to exhaust the area, based on known rates of searching, like pounds per day. They're able to give them an estimate of how many people this is going to take and how much time it's going to take. They have to order specialized protective gear, steel-toed boots, Tyvek suits, respirators, gloves to put over the gloves. This is a biohazard environment. And they have to find volunteers, and this is an all-volunteer duty. All right? And for weeks, volunteers from the police department and from some other law enforcement agencies came out here early in the morning, and they do this landfill search that involves an excavator up in the search area, scooping up garbage, putting it in a dump truck. Dump truck comes down on this open area bounded by cones that they call the search deck. Excavator down here kind of spreads the garbage, that particular load, I think they were calling them lines, out onto the search deck. And the law enforcement officers, these volunteers, get online with rakes, and they just search through it. This is what that looked like. And they do this for days.
Look at that. 32 days.
In the heat.
32 days.
That's why I said earlier, these efforts can only be described as heroic.
And I didn't know they was volunteers. They wasn't even getting paid.
The evidence will show that these things are not typically successful. There's a very low success rate with these landfill searches because, again, it's a needle in a haystack proposition. But that's what the police are doing while she is playing games with investigators and changing her story and changing.
Okay, I have to stop it right here. Let me say this fact. So, the baby, she reported the baby missing on the 5th. She did not give any type of interview with any news agency, news stations. She didn't give the plea for help to find her missing child. That's kind of weird because a lot of time in these cases we're familiar with those pleas. Please find my baby. We just want you to come home. She didn't give any of those press conferences about her baby being missing until the 24th. That's very, very, very unusual. Right? As sickening as it is in cases like this, when these people come on the news and plead for help and plead to just bring their baby home, at least they do it. The defendant, LEILANI Simon, she didn't even make pleas for help to find her baby. She didn't even go on the news and say anything while she was telling these lies and doing all this. She didn't even attempt to do that. She didn't go on the news and make that old pitiful lying plea until October 24th. And the only reason she went on the news and gave that plea for help was because of the fact that people had started protesting in front of her home. And it's like 4 people that was actually arrested in front of her house because they was banging at the windows. They was knocking at the door. They was calling for her head on a platter. Can you imagine the selfishness in that? The only reason why she even went on the news to give that lying, pitiful, fake plea for help in finding her son was because of how it was affecting her and her safety. She reported Quentin missing on the 5th. She went on the news pleading for help on the 24th. Let that sink in. Okay?
Her story again. October 24th, while the landfill search is underway, and those volunteers are suffering in the heat out there, not knowing whether the next rape is going to bring more tedium and boredom, or if it's going to bring the horror of what they're actually looking for. The defendant is still playing games. Having already admitted that
I swear this man is copying off of me.
threw away trash, but it was only stinky shrimp pasta. She does an interview with the news, WTOC, in which she still, even at this late stage, this is October 24th, that's 19 days after the initial 911 call, and after several interviews where her story has just been shot to pieces. She does this interview where she holds herself out as the victim of a child abduction, still on that, and has the gall to make an appeal to the public to just please bring Quentin home safe. And the evidence will show that she knows he's not safe. And she knows he's not coming home.
My kids woke up to me screaming, "Where's Quentin?" and running through the house. I ran and looked everywhere, inside, outside, just screaming for help. I've been here every day since this. I'm not running and I'm not hiding. And it's something
All about her.
that I am at fault. I will take myself to that police station.
That's her mama.
We want justice for Quentin's life. We want justice to him. We want answers.
We don't care the cost.
We want answers just like everybody else does. At the end of it all, we love you, baby Q. My little boy Q, we want him home.
Hi, Snack. Just shameful, okay? Just shameful. And so this is the first time we see her mother, Billy Joe. Now, Billy Joe Howell, her mom, is a situation in and of itself, okay? Just a little bit of, and a Snack, this is the opening statements. So you'll be able to catch up and read all this for the opening statements. And by the time I come back live, hopefully tomorrow, if I can, I'm going to the dentist and start the witness testimonies. You'll be here with us and watching with us, right? So just rewatch this video. And don't forget, you guys, I have a playlist, okay? With the playlist, what I have so far with this case is a detailed timeline of events with original news clips and photos. And also on the timeline, not the timeline, also on the playlist is an upload I did today, a live I did today, with the actual documents, the eviction, the police report, the child support order, and the indictment. Mind you, as she's sitting here telling all these lies that he's breaking down and showing, she's been charged with felony murder, malicious murder, a third count of some type of murder, and the rest of the charges is all charges for false statements. And they literally charged her for every false statement she gave. They charged her, she got a charge of false statements for talking about the Oragel, false statements talking about this, false statements talking about that. They charged her with each and every one. And by the time they tried to get some of those charges dropped before the trial, and the judge said no. So she is facing in court now 19 charges, right? They're trying her for 19, all of them. They didn't drop not one. Let's continue. We're almost done.
That same day in which she's claiming to
Thank y'all for joining and hit the like.
And to just want him home, she sends this text message to Savannah Solomon of the FBI. And this is just the latest Hail Mary. After all the statements about going to the Chevron and then going to Azalea and what she was doing there, and I was actually throwing away trash and not Quentin, At this point, October 24th, the same day as that news interview, she and Danny are split at this point. He kind of seems to see the writing on the wall for her and has left town, I believe, and I think they're not together at this point. And so now's the perfect time to try to put it on Danny. I'm not lying for Danny anymore. The reason why my story about Oragel and shit didn't make sense was because Danny told me to say that he was the one who left, and my phone was in the car from my previous trip. And the reason she says that is her phone GPS puts her at the dumpsters too, not just the video. So anyway, she's throwing it on Danny and is now saying, you know what, I didn't actually make that trip, well, it's him, not me. And they get her in for an interview a couple days later to formalize that statement. And they just sort of let her talk and put it out there. But the evidence will show that it was clearly not true. It was a desperate attempt to just try something new after, I don't know, a dozen lies to that point. And that interview was on October 31st, last day in October. Now on November 18th, about 3 or 4 weeks after they started searching through that landfill, this arduous task, challenging thing, all volunteers, they finally find what they're looking for. November 18th is a memorable day for the people who are involved in this landfill search, because they find Quentin.
My. Look at that.
Okay,
Horrible.
in pieces.
Horrible.
Mostly bones, a foot. It's not as though he's in one place on that search deck. They're finding bones in different lines, spread out. He's torn apart. They send Quentin's remains up to the FBI lab at Quantico.
I have got to pause this. Look at LEILANI. Do y'all remember when, at the beginning of the opening statements, when they was talking about her relationship with Danny, her boyfriend, and how much pain she was in because she felt unloved? Do y'all remember when, at the beginning of the opening statements, when they played that video she made when she was acting like she was about to off herself? Do y'all remember when they was showing that and talking about that? When the court camera panned to her like they doing now. She was crying. She was crying so much as they was talking about her relationship and her love for Danny. She had to take her glasses off. She had to use Kleenexes. She had to wipe off her glasses. Y'all remember that? And now, they just showed a picture of her baby bones they discovered. They just showed that picture. Help put that picture on their screen. Look at her demeanor now. Where is the flowing tears? Where is the Kleenexes? Why is she not wiping the tears off her glasses? I just wanted to really take a pause right there and compare and contrast that whole scenario of how she was breaking down, crying, talking about Danny. And now she looking at her handiwork and her baby bone. And she's quite stoic right now. And Renee say, I didn't see that part, right? But she's showing no emotion for it. You see that part, right? A trip. A trip. You know, but everybody innocent till proven guilty. And so right now she's a defendant. You know. Let's continue.
where DNA analysis is done, and they confirm what everybody already knew, is that this is Quentin. And the defendant comes in for one last interview. So that's where she ends up, after having given this very detailed cover story about going to the Chevron to meet Misty for Oragel, and having added this later, this richly detailed account of having thrown away some garbage at Azalea in the dumpster, but it only being shrimp pasta. Her final story, when they found Quentin after tracing the trash and making it undeniable that what she was throwing away in that dumpster at Azalea was her son's body, the best she could do in her last interview is to claim a total and complete lack of memory from seeing him in his pack and play at 10-something to snapping back into consciousness on the way home from Azalea. And we'll watch it, you'll see more specifically what she says happened is that she was driving home, hit a set of railroad tracks, and that jolted her back into now forming memories again. That's the story she ends up with. After those richly detailed accounts of false statements for what happened during that trip, now she just can't remember anything that happened during the critical time period in this case, the murder and the disposal of the body. So that is, as concise as I could make it, the account of what happened and what how the investigation unfolded. What will the trial look like? Okay, so that's kind of the story, start to finish. What will the trial look like? Trial's not like an opening statement. All right, we bring witnesses in one at a time. It can be kind of disjointed and choppy because each individual comes in and they can only talk about really their role and what they did, heard, saw, that sort of thing. You will hear from some of the responding officers. You'll hear from people like Michelle McCarta, people in Quentin's life, and can tell you some things about how the defendant felt about Quentin and treated him. You'll hear from the investigators who took these statements and followed up on them. You'll hear from some of the people who were involved in this search of the landfill. You'll hear from some of the scientists at Quantico who were tasked with identifying Quentin and seeing what they could make of these remains, which are just totally torn apart. What I do not expect you will hear is exactly how the defendant killed Quentin. And that's because she covered it up. It's because she got rid of the body. All right. The evidence will show that her specific intent from the outset was that he never be found at all. And him being found in pieces, little bitty pieces, was the next best thing. The judge will tell you that in a case like this, we do not have to prove exactly how the defendant killed Quentin. Under these circumstances, how could you? And that is a sensible rule. Because what we have to prove, what is important, is not exactly how she killed him, but that she killed him. The fact that she did it. And the evidence that we will present to you will do that. It will do that, beyond a reasonable doubt. So at the end of the case, when all the evidence is in, we will make our closing arguments, and we will ask you to find her guilty of all of the charges in the indictment. I want to thank you for your attention. This has been a fairly long opening statement, but it was important to us, because it's our one chance to do it, is to give you kind of soup to nuts from the outset. What is this case about, and what did this investigation look like? So I thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dean. Turn to the defense. Does the defense wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, here go the defense.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't intend to speak nearly as long as Mr. Dean did. Because frankly, this whole case is about rumor, gossip, speculation, and innuendo, and ultimately, the state's bold conclusions about what they say happened but can't prove. Unquestionably, this is an emotional case. I know that. I have 5 children, 4 grandchildren. So I understand how emotional this can be. But this case can't be decided based on emotions. It has to be decided on facts and evidence presented in this courtroom. It can't be determined by emotions or their rumors and their gossip and their conclusions. And in the end, what you will determine is that's exactly the foundation of the state's claims. Bunch of conclusions, bunch of declarations, unsupported by actual evidence. These declarations about she did this at 1 o'clock, she killed Benton. She drove here, and then all of that are their conclusions, what they have decided the evidence shows. But what is important in a trial is this witness stand, where witnesses testify and evidence is presented. It's not what some lawyer says. It's not what the state declares the evidence to be, and that includes this discussion about the statements. Mr. Dean has...
I don't know why it's not in
ideas
sync
what the
all of a
statements
sudden.
represent, but that's your job. And it's not to simply rely on the state's conclusions about what they mean. The state has a conclusion. The core conclusion is that LEILANI Marie Simon murdered her child. The evidence will simply not support that bold conclusion. That is why, after we've heard all the evidence and all the argument, the evidence will lead you to one place, and that is a finding with respect to murder and concealing the death of another, of not guilty. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burks.
Baby, that is the... what y'all think about that? You know, ain't nothing funny, but sometimes you just gotta find it, you know, in the midst of a tragic situation, sometimes you just gotta, you know, find a little levity, right? But at that moment, I think, what can the defense say? What can they say, right? So after that long, extended, very thorough opening statement by the prosecution, by the state, the defense come up and say, look, they just winging it. They just giving a lot of innuendos. They can't prove nothing. I ain't finna take up y'all time. That's it. Okay. He went up there with his little bow tie, looking like Elmer Fudd. Lady Steph say Elmer Fudd need to take many seats. Sweet Vampin say, I'm not gonna like this guy. Baby, let me tell y'all something. That one with that red tie, he the one to keep y'all eye out for. And look at LEILANI. She steady writing notes. Okay, so let's get to this part right here. Let me go ahead and give y'all a couple of little sidebars, information I found, procured. Let me take this down. I pinned this comment from Lady Steph, and I'm glad you made this comment. How do I close this out? Hold on. Let me see. How do I take, okay, I'm having a brain freeze. Okay, right here. That's Lil Quentin. So, Lady Steph says the grandmother has custody. Why wasn't she more involved in an outcry for help? Why did the mama even have him? I'm confused. All right. So, because some of the information is being kept out of court, I'll fill you in. The defendant has a background of drug usage. She's been arrested a couple of times. She was on probation for theft from her previous job. These things played a part in her losing custody of her children to her mother. Her mother is Billy Joe Howell. Let me show y'all Billy Joe's picture. One moment. Let me see. Where is it at? Oh, let me bring it back up. Okay, so that's the granny, Billy Joe Howell. Okay, that's Quentin. Rest in peace. She had custody of the baby. In fact, she had custody of the two boys. The older brother, that was 3 at the time, Quentin, who was, 20 months old, and then the granddaughter was just like a few months old. She actually had legal custody of the 2 children. Now, at the time of this happening to Quentin, the mother and the stepfather was out of town. They wasn't home. So that would account for the fact of where she was at when this happened. Okay, I give you that. They was gone. They was out of town. But even in the opening statements, to not get ahead of the witnesses, but in the opening statements, we heard the prosecutor make reference to the fact that the defendant's boyfriend would take the children to the babysitter. Correct. The mother and the boyfriend, LEILANI and her boyfriend Danny, were living in the house with the mom and stepfather. And a month before, the mother, Billy Joe, had literally went to the courthouse and filed the eviction on LEILANI and her boyfriend to get them out the house. But we also heard the state make references to the fact about the babysitter, right? And how the boyfriend was taking the kids to the babysitter. So it would seem, and also we saw pictures tonight of the living situation in the house. How the kids was all in different little beds and they was all in one big room. So to me, it gives me the impression that even though the mother had legal custody of these children, as long as LEILANI was in that house, she was pretty much leaving the children to LEILANI, who had already been deemed unfit. Now, in something that's supposed to be non-related to, okay, let me put it this way. The grandmother, Billy Joe Howell, was actually arrested. Between the time this happened, the baby came up missing and was unalive. Hold on. To the time, between that time and the time of this trial starting last week. This is the grandmother again. So the grandmother was arrested a few months after this all started, right? The grandmother was arrested and she was in jail and held for 10 days. She was held in jail for 10 days on charges not related to the murder of Lil Quentin, but because of charges in contempt of court in the juvenile court. The exact charges was never released. They never released the exact charges, period, of what she had been arrested for and held in jail, where she stayed for 10 days. Another interesting side note, sidebar fact, because it's not going to come into play in this trial, because it was denied. They denied it coming in, but it's true. Let me show y'all one other thing here. And I don't want to make y'all mad this late at night, but baby, if you think you mad now, wait till y'all see this. Wait till y'all see this. I hadn't even added it on here, but I'm gonna add it real quick. All right, good night, sweet vampy. I'm about to end it. I want to show y'all this one other little tidbit here that I came across. Where is this picture? Where is the picture of this girl? Dang, I might not be able to find the picture tonight. Let me see. Where is the picture? Let me find this picture, please. Because this is a trip. This is an entire trip. Dang. I can't find it. I'll show y'all tomorrow. But remember how I told y'all that LEILANI never went on the news and made a plea for Quentin to be found? During one of the searches of the residence early on in this investigation, before they found his body, the mother and the defendant was at a bar, a local bar, taking shots of Patron. They had opened a tab. The wait staff at that bar stated they was flirting with some of the waiters and laughing it up and having a good old time. I have a picture of LEILANI, the defendant, that night in the bar. So it's not gossip. She was literally in that bar, her and her mom, taking shots of Patron. And I'm going to post that picture. We're going to look at that picture tomorrow when I come on, or the next time I come on. Hopefully I'll be able to come on tomorrow. So it's something not right about a lot of this stuff. And quite honestly, that mother, the grandmother I'm speaking of, she leaves a lot to be desired as well. Right? And how much responsibility does she play in this, seeing how she actually had the legal custody of this child? If the state already found LEILANI unfit, if you have legal custody of these children, how much of it is your responsibility to look out for their best interests? What part do you play in this? Just a thought. So I just want to, here and there, I'm going to be giving y'all bits and pieces of information that I've come across that I may notice not being talked about, because in my research, I know it's some things they decided to keep out of the trial, so it can be a fair trial, whatever that means. And that's one of the things with Billy Joe Howell, the mother, the granny, that I definitely wanted to bring up. So that was a good point, Lady Steph, that you made in the comments. So let me go ahead and close this out and let you guys know how much I appreciate y'all for joining me on this installment of Trial Watch with Demetra. This is the first official live with the Trial Watch. We just watched the opening statements of both the state of Georgia and the defense for LEILANI Simon. We want to definitely acknowledge the victim in this case, little Quentin, you know, who lost his life in this whole deal. Y'all, please be sure to hit y'all notifications and in the comments, if you guys are watching this on the replay, please let me know you came through. Let me know what you think about the opening statements. Let me know what you think about the case so far. And of course, hit y'all bell so y'all can know when I come live and so we can get this going, okay? Let me take this picture down. Thank y'all so much again for joining me. I am demetralitALLday. Y'all have a fantastic day tomorrow and a great night rest tonight. I'll see y'all then. Right, I hope my dentist appointment go well tomorrow too, and I need to go ahead and do what I gotta do. So I'll let y'all know on my wall. Bye y'all. Good night for now. Bye for now. Okay. Let me end the live. I'm gonna try not to hang up on y'all. Let me count to 10. Lady Steph.